Hi, welcome to the Security Principles chapter. Here we would be learning about various topics under the Security Principles domain. This is the first domain under the ISC Square certified in cybersecurity. So let's begin. An organization is trying to determine the potential impact of a natural disaster on its operations. What type of risk assessment tool would be the most appropriate to use in this scenario? The options are both quantitative and qualitative risk assessment, qualitative risk assessment, digital risk assessment, and the fourth option is quantitative risk assessment. Now, in this scenario, it would be appropriate to use both quantitative and qualitative risk assessment tools. A qualitative assessment would be used to identify the potential risks posed by the natural disaster, while a quantitative assessment would be used to determine the potential financial impact. So this would help the organization to develop a more comprehensive risk management plan, which would include measures to reduce the likelihood of the disaster occurring and to minimize its impact if it were to occur. So the correct option is the first one, both quantitative and qualitative risk assessments. What is the most important aspect of maintaining confidentiality in information security? The options are physical security, administrative security, all of the above, and technical security. Now, the question has been asked regarding the most important aspect of maintaining confidentiality in information security. Maintaining confidentiality in information security requires a combination of physical security, technical security, and administrative security. Physical security is concerned with the protection of the information from physical threats such as theft or even damage, whereas the technical security involves the use of encryption and other security controls to protect the information from unauthorized access or disclosure. The administrative security refers to the policies, procedures, and guidelines that regulate access to the information and to ensure that it remains confidential. So all of these aspects are important for maintaining confidentiality in information security. So the correct option is the third option, which is all of the above. So physical security, administrative security, and technical security are the important aspects for maintaining the confidentiality in information security. What is the definition of confidentiality in the context of information security? The options are the ability of a system to prevent unauthorized access to data, the accuracy and consistency of data over time, the availability of data for authorized users, the protection of sensitive information from unauthorized disclosure. So the confidentiality refers to the protection of sensitive information from unauthorized disclosure. Confidentiality helps to ensure that sensitive information is only accessible by authorized individuals and the unauthorized individuals cannot view or access the information. Confidentiality is a key aspect of information security as it helps to protect sensitive information from theft, loss, or even abuse. So the correct option is the fourth one, the protection of sensitive information from unauthorized disclosure. Which type of control is concerned with the policies, procedures, and processes that govern the use of systems and data? The options are administrative controls, physical controls, technical controls, all of the above. Administrative controls are concerned with the policies, procedures, and processes that govern the use of systems and data. Examples of administrative controls include the security awareness training, incident response plans, and access control policies. So the correct answer is the option number 1, administrative controls. What is an example of using something the user knows as an authentication factor in MFA? MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. The options given are a security token, a password, a smart card, a fingerprint scan. So the question is being asked that what is something that the user knows as an authentication factor? It is not asking about what user has. So basically we might be knowing the password, right? So it is not the security token. It is not something has. So something knows. So security token is incorrect answer. A password is a correct answer. A smart card is again, it's an incorrect. The fourth option, fingerprint scan, no, it's again incorrect because it is something that the user is, right? So the correct option is the second one, a password. What is the purpose of risk assessment? The options are to avoid addressing risks, to prioritize risks and determine the most effective approach to mitigating or managing those risks, to maximize the impact of risks, to minimize the impact of risks. Now, the purpose of risk assessment is to prioritize the risks that have been identified and to determine the most effective approach to mitigate or manage those risks. By assessing the likelihood and potential impact of each risk, organizations can focus their efforts on the risks that pose the greatest threat to their operations and allocate resources accordingly. So the correct answer is the second option, to prioritize risks and determine the most effective approach to mitigating or managing those risks. What is the main purpose of ISC Square Code of Ethics Preamble? Guys, we have to remember that there will definitely be more than one question on the ISC Square Code of Ethics Preamble. So the options given here are to advance the cybersecurity profession, to ensure the safety and welfare of society and the common good, to protect the infrastructure and public trust, to promote ethical standards of behavior. The main purpose of the ISC Square Code of Ethics Preamble is to ensure the safety and welfare of society and the common good, and to promote ethical standards of behavior by strict adherence to the code. So the correct option is the second option, to ensure the safety and welfare of society and the common good. What is the primary function of regulations and laws in governance processes? The options are to ensure legal compliance, to enforce policies and procedures, to set standards for performance and behavior, to provide guidelines for decision making. Regulations and laws are legally binding and enforceable rules that organizations must comply with. They are basically designed to ensure that organizations operate in a manner that is in line with the laws of the country and to protect the rights of individuals and the public. If there is any failure to comply with the regulations and laws, it can result in penalties and legal actions. So the correct answer is the first option, to ensure legal compliance. What is the main purpose of implementing dual control in a security system? The options are to reduce the risk of unauthorized access, to increase efficiency, to increase transparency, to reduce the risk of data breaches. Dual controls is a security control in which access to a resource is granted only when two or more authorized individuals provide their approval. So here the main purpose of dual control is to reduce the risk of unauthorized access and improve the security of sensitive information. So the correct answer is the first option, to reduce the risk of unauthorized access. What is the territorial scope of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR? Applies only to data controllers located within the European Union. Applies only to data processes located within the European Union. Applies to data controllers and processes located inside or outside the European Union if they offer goods or services to data subjects within the European Union. The fourth option is applies only to data controllers and processes located within the European Union. Now, the GDPR applies to data controllers and processes located inside or outside the European Union if they offer goods or services to data subjects within the European Union. This means that organizations that process the personal data of European Union citizens, regardless of their location, must comply with the provisions of the GDPR. So the correct option is the third option, applies to data controllers and processes located inside or outside the European Union if they offer goods or services to data subjects within the European Union. What happens if an individual holding an ISC certification violates the Code of Ethics Canon 1? Protect society, the common good, necessary public trust and confidence and infrastructure. The options are: the individual may face a disciplinary action from ISC which could result in revocation of their certification. The second option is the individual may receive a warning but their certification will remain intact. The third option is the individual may face criminal charges for their actions which could have a negative impact on their career and reputation. The fourth option is the individual will be deemed to have fulfilled their professional obligations. Now, ISC takes it very seriously about these kind of issues, and any violation of ISC canons could result in disciplinary action and revocation of the individual's certification. So the correct answer is the option number 1. What are some common types of risk assessment tools? The options are: quantitative risk assessment tools, qualitative risk assessment tools, neither A nor B, both A and B. There are two common types of risk assessment tools, quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative risk assessment tools use numerical data to determine the likelihood and impact of risks, while the qualitative risk assessment tools use subjective data to assess risks. Both types of tools can be useful in different circumstances, and organizations may choose to use a combination of both. So the correct answer is both A and B. What is the difference between risk mitigation and risk transfer? The options are: risk mitigation involves reducing the impact of risks, while risk transfer involves shifting the risk to another party. The second option is: risk mitigation involves ignoring risks, while risk transfer involves addressing risks. The third option is: risk mitigation and risk transfer are the same thing. The fourth option is: risk mitigation involves increasing the risk exposure, while risk transfer involves reducing the risk exposure. Risk mitigation and risk transfer are two different strategies for managing the risks. Risk mitigation involves reducing the impact of risks through various methods, such as implementing controls or reducing the likelihood of a risk occurring. Whereas the risk transfer, on the other hand, involves shifting the risk to another party, such as an insurance company, so that the organization is no longer responsible for the risk. Both risk mitigation and risk transfer are important components of a comprehensive risk management program, and organizations should consider using both strategies to manage their risks effectively. So the correct option is the first option. Risk mitigation involves reducing the impact of risks, while risk transfer involves shifting the risks to another party. What is the purpose of data backup and disaster recovery in technical controls? The options are to ensure the availability and recoverability of critical data in the event of a disaster or data loss. The second option is to protect sensitive data by converting it into an unreadable format. The third option is to enforce access control policies between a computer network and the internet. The fourth option is to monitor network traffic for malicious activity. The purpose of data backup and disaster recovery in technical controls is to ensure the availability and recoverability of critical data in the event of a disaster or data loss. By regularly backing up the data and having a disaster recovery plan in place, organizations can minimize the downtime and ensure the continuity of their operations. So the correct answer is the first option, to ensure the availability and recoverability of critical data in the event of a disaster or data loss. Which of the following tasks should not be assigned to a single individual according to a separation of duties principle? The options are configuring security settings, implementing security updates, requesting access to a system, and approving access to a system. The principle of separation of duties states that the approvers should be divided, right? So that you have multiple layers of security. Approving access to a system should not be assigned to a single individual according to the separation of duties principle. This is because it creates a potential conflict of interest, as the individual could potentially approve access for themselves, which can lead to security breaches. Instead, we can do the access approvals should be done by a separate individual or a different department. What is the importance of involving stakeholders in the risk identification process? The options are to avoid addressing risks, to ensure that all risks are considered, to minimize the impact of risks, to minimize the risk of error. Involving stakeholders in the risk identification process is important because it helps to ensure that all risks are considered and that a broad range of perspectives are taken into account. By involving stakeholders, organizations can identify risks that may not have been considered otherwise, providing a more complete understanding of the risks facing the organization. So the correct answer is the second option, to ensure that all risks are considered. What is the most common method of authentication? The options are smart card authentication, biometric authentication, password-based authentication, token-based authentication. Out of the 4 options given, the most common method of authentication what we see is the password-based authentication, basically which we use on the laptops, right? So the first thing what we use as the password. Then we have the biometric, we have the smart card authentications, we also have the token-based authentication. So the password-based authentication is the most common method of authentication. It involves the use of a secret password to verify the identity of an user. Although password-based authentication is widely used and convenient, it has limitations in terms of security, as passwords can be easily guessed or stolen. What is the main objective of integrity in information security? The options are authentication, accuracy, confidentiality, availability. Now, do we remember the triad, security triad, which is the CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, accuracy is directly related with the integrity of the data. So, the accuracy is one of the main objectives of information security, and its main purpose is to ensure that the information is accurate and complete and that it has not been altered or corrupted in any way. The objective helps to maintain the trustworthiness and reliability of the information, and it is essential aspect of ensuring that the information is used in an intended manner. So the correct answer is the second option, accuracy. What are some common authentication methods used in cybersecurity? The options are passwords, biometrics, and smart cards, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and antivirus software, encryption, compression, and error correction, network address translation, private networks, and proxy servers. The passwords, biometrics, and smart cards are common authentication methods used in cybersecurity. Passwords are the most widely used method of authentication and are simple and convenient to use, isn't it? Biometrics involves the use of unique physical characteristics such as fingerprints or facial recognition for authentication. Smart cards contain a microprocessor that stores digital certificates and can be used for secure authentication. So the correct answer here is the first option, passwords, biometrics, and smart cards. Which of the following is an example of a compensating control? The options are employee training programs, physical locks on doors, firewall, background checks for employees. The employee training programs are an example of a compensative control because they are designed to educate employees about security best practices and to reduce the risk of security incidents caused by human error. By training employees to recognize and respond to potential security threats, organizations can reduce the risk of security incidents and minimize the impact of any incidents that do occur. Please note that employee training programs serve both a compensating and administrative purpose and can be considered part of both control categories. So the correct option here is the first option, employee training programs. What are the key principles of privacy in the context of information security? Transparency, control, and accountability, availability, confidentiality, and integrity, security, privacy, and compliance, trust, privacy, and responsibility. The key principles of privacy in the context of information security are transparency, control, and accountability. Transparency refers to organizations being transparent and how they collect, use, and share personal information. Control refers to individuals having control over their personal information. Accountability refers to organizations being accountable for how they handle personal information. These three principles are considered to be the cornerstone of privacy in the context of information security. So the correct option is transparency, control, accountability. Your company is looking to implement a convenient and secure authentication system for its employees. Which of the following methods would provide the best balance of convenience and security? The options are biometric authentication, smart card authentication, password-based authentication, token-based authentication. Now, out of the 4 options given, the convenient and the secure authentication system for the employees is the token-based authentication. Token-based authentication provides a good balance of convenience and security. Token-based authentication uses a temporary code generated by a device such as a security token or a smartphone to verify the identity of an user. This helps the convenience as it does not require the user to remember a password or carry a physical device such as a smart card. At the same time, it provides a secure way to authenticate users as the temporary code adds an additional layer of security beyond just a password. Token-based authentication is often used in combination with other authentication methods for added security. So, the correct answer is the 4th one, token-based authentication. Which of the following is an example of a technical control? The options are physical locks on doors, background checks for employees, employee training programs, firewall. A firewall is an example of a technical control because it is a software-based security measure that is designed to protect a network from unauthorized access. Firewall works by enforcing rules and policies that dictate which types of incoming and outgoing network traffic are allowed. So the correct option is the 4th option, firewall. In accordance with the ISC Code of Ethics, what should an information security professional do if they encounter a situation that arises ethical concerns? The options are take steps to resolve the situation in accordance with the Code of Ethics, report the situation to their supervisor, ignore the situation, seek the advice of a lawyer. The ISC Code of Ethics requires members to take appropriate action if they encounter a situation that arises ethical concerns. Members must use their best judgment to resolve the situation in a manner that consistent with the principles of the Code of Ethics, and they must always act in the best interest of the individuals and organizations they serve. So the correct option is the first option, take steps to resolve the situation in accordance with the Code of Ethics. What is authentication in the context of cybersecurity? The options are the process of encrypting data, the process of detecting and preventing security threats, the process of backing up data, the process of verifying the identity of a user or device. Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user or device before granting access to resources or information. It is an important aspect of cybersecurity as it helps to ensure that only authorized users or devices can access sensitive information. So the correct answer is the 4th option, the process of verifying the identity of a user or device. Now we have reached to end of this chapter. Please like and subscribe the channel Zero Touch Cyber. Thank you. Now we have reached to the end of the part 1 of the security principles session. Please like and subscribe our channel. Thank you.